about it. I think if I
Yeah.
remember right.
All right. Well, guys, 5 seconds.
Okay.
2, 1.
We can see you.
There you
I
are.
can't see me. That's why.
I see Alex's new microphone check.
I see yours, Jeff. It looks a lot
I
like
know.
this one.
It does. Matching.
Yeah. How'd that happen?
I don't know, because I'm sitting here at my desk and all of a sudden, because I don't get packages delivered to me at the dealership, and all of a sudden the parts manager comes back and he's got like 5 big boxes for me. I'm like, this isn't for me. Like, what is this? Out of nowhere, Alex decided to send us new mics, I guess, mic stand and soundboard and everything else to go along with it.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it, man. I'm glad you did it. I wouldn't have done it. I would have never thought about it.
Well, I was listening to, I guess, a YouTube video. I don't remember whose it was, but they were talking about how most people aren't going to watch you. They're going to listen to you. So I was like, well, maybe we should make sure our audio is a little more clear.
No, I agree. Yeah.
So here we go.
So what's up with these mics?
Well, and
There's a
sorry,
little bit of story behind these, right?
hopefully this is a little bit of interest for Mike here as well, since his daughter is a country singer, and you got to plug her in a minute.
Famous country singer.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. I didn't get my mic, though. I'm waiting for it. You got a box somewhere, Jeff?
We'll have to send you one out.
I'm looking. I can get it. All right.
But yeah, they're the Shure 55s. They're from, I think, 1955. They really haven't been updated since then. They've sort of found the magic. And then a lot of the Shure mics, the classic ones, are based off of this. But this was the Elvis mic, and a number of presidents used it for the radio addresses. It's got quite a history.
It's quite patriotic.
Yeah, but it's blue, so DealerRefresh.
That's
blue.
why you bought it. You're like, look at that blue mic. It's the same blue that we use for our logo.
Exactly.
And it just happened to have all this history behind it.
Damn right, man. It's all about looks.
Well,
Who cares about function?
Very professional.
So speaking of mics, hey Mike.
Hey guys.
Nice segue.
Father's Day is coming up. It's dad joke time. But no, Mike's got a famous country singing daughter, and she's more interesting than him. That's why we're going to talk about her first.
I appreciate that.
Now, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Hoyser with Phone Ninjas, a company. I appreciate you having me on today. I've been working in the industry for quite a while now with Phone Ninjas. I've been traveling around the country, going to all different types of stores, different sizes of stores, and I'm the VP of training. I'm the on-site trainer. I'm the one that's going in and experiencing the day-to-day life in the phones and the BDCs and those types of things. So I appreciate coming on here and talking about this. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. We were talking a little bit about my daughters. I actually have 2 daughters. I know I talk a little bit more about one than the other. Yeah.
That's dangerous.
I have, 2 famous daughters, Claudia and Olivia. Claudia is the country singer. She's not quite famous yet, famous to me, but
she's opening up for Toby Keith.
Yeah, this summer we had a show set up to open up for Toby Keith out in California, and because of the current environment, it was postponed or pushed off for now. We're hoping that things will lighten up out there and give us some more opportunity to get more shows. But it's not just tough on her; it's all the singers and people in entertainment that are out there. They're really this is a tough time for them, and we hope that this we get through it quick so we can get back to work. Check her out. Her name is Claudia Hoyser. She's out there. You can find her anywhere. Please use the blue check if you look at it on on Facebook or any of the social media. Look for the blue check on Instagram and things like that, because she does have a lot of hackers that have different people out there.
And we've seen a big climb in that here just in the past couple months because everyone's online working from home. I was just watching an article, or I was watching a news segment. It was just talking about how just because so many people were working from home, that hackers are just going crazy, you know. And we had just, I think, within a 2-week period, we caught 3 scammers at the website using, other people's personality.
Yeah. And
personal identification, I should say.
What's amazing is you'll reach out and message somebody and they'll respond, and you don't know. And even my daughter says that when the hacker responds and says something, she's really amazed at how well they respond, and you would never know until they ask for something. So that's what she tells everybody. I would never ask for any money. I don't look for any donation. I'll look for anything. If anyone asks, that's not me. So it's really the indicator that happens, So, but yeah, it's amazing how many people show up monthly.
Identity theft.
Yeah.
So, Mike, what got you into the car business, or at least this side of the car business?
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I was in the car business way back in the 80s and 90s. I sold cars, F&I manager as well. And I was in there. I got out and did a bunch of different things. And then I don't know, like you guys, I had friends in the business still. I always really enjoyed cars. I sold all kinds of things. And the president and founder of this company, okay, we used to sell cars side by side together. He knew me, okay, and thought it might be a nice fit. I had an opportunity to get back in and go over it and use the program. Obviously, I've used a lot of phone and selling in all different types of industries. So I have a lot of experience in making a lot of calls and those types of things. So going out and sharing those experiences and on top of the programs that we have, which is a nice fit. So that's how I got back in. And I just really enjoy the industry. I enjoy the people. People can be themselves. I've worked in big companies where they had all the political type side of it, and doing the right things, wearing the right clothes, saying all those things, making the mistakes. And it's really kind of nice to be yourself and really kind of show those personalities again. And we see that in our business, and I can see it in you guys, even in these interviews. So it's really it's a real nice place to work.
That's great. Thanks for the lowdown.
Yeah. So speaking of people you work with, looks like Chris Vitale's piping in here.
Yeah?
And
what's he saying?
He's asking, where's Webb? Joe Webb.
Big Joe Webb. Where is he? Is he out there?
I see Bill Playford, though.
I'm surprised Bill wouldn't jump on after his comments in the post on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, there were.
Well, so the title of I guess sort of the title of today's show was does your presence is your leverage work anymore? And what about just get them in? Because obviously, even if you do say that, up to this point, it probably hasn't been too effective because for a lot of dealerships in different states, people weren't able to come in. So what's, and I guess that's one of those terms that, even to this day, I'll call, I'll mystery shop a dealership or something like that. It's been a while, but I have done it in the past, and I typically know, have they been through phone training of some sort? And I always know that because they use that your presence is your leverage. What do you say about that? I mean, has that changed with today's climate?
Well, I think it's changed in obviously in today's climate and where you've used that. Presence is your leverage is an objection handling tool when it comes down to best price. It's something that we have in there as a suggestion. Generally, that term is saved at a very, very small percentage of the calls. Generally, most of the calls are more related to availability. 68-70% of the calls is availability calls. Then you have all the other calls, and you have best price calls. And when it gets down to the best price calls, then we start to get a little bit different in the objection handling. You may bring up this, but I think the presence is your leverage really is kind of like a way of preempting something you were going to say on top of it. Okay, so you don't just leave it at there. But I think in today, what we're dealing with now, your privilege is your leverage. When you're more able to drop by, we're going to open things up now. Okay, I can see why people would use it, but I think we're going to be opening things up now to not just coming in. I think when you're setting appointments, you're really setting meetings in a way. And I think it's not just in the dealership. It's at home, it's at office, it could be virtual. And I think that that's one of those things where the word presence may not work in that situation, but there are a lot of situations where it does work well. But I just wouldn't want to just lean on that. My experience in going to the dealerships when I'm training, it's one of the first things we talk about in objection handling and price. It's short and sweet and easily remembered. Some of the ones that other suggestions we have, people don't usually jump into those because they just use this one, and if it's effective for them, they tend to lean on it. So we hear it a lot. All right. So sometimes that's one of the things happen, but there are a lot of suggestions that they could use, but I know it does come up.
Well, I shouldn't say I never thought about that, but yeah, you're right in the fact that, a lot of times, even here at this dealership, it was a word track that was used too early, too soon.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're right. If you've got someone that's sort of being hard-headed, really negotiating, why not use it? So it still has its place for sure.
Yeah, it does in that area, but I think you'd really got to kind of tailor it a little bit. Sometimes the suggestions I make is, kind of make it personal a little bit. If you get to the point where a guy is really looking for the best price and he's kind of pushing you in a corner a little bit, sometimes you just say it's just like you. It's like, I know you're trying to get the best price. So would I. Okay, and when I'm looking for things, I always want to feel like I'm getting a fair deal or I'm paying the right amount. I want to be there too. Okay, and the guy says, well, yeah. So now you've kind of evened things out a little bit. Okay, and then you say, okay, now the vehicle you're looking at here, okay, you're seeing the price on the internet. We were very aggressive about this. We've done a lot of research. Okay, we know that it's priced accordingly. Okay, but if you're willing to come in, your presence is your leverage. You sitting here and showing just your interest is really going to make a difference. So when are you more available to drop by? If you kind of put it in there with the whole story, then it seems to flow a little bit than just leaning on that and say, hey, your presence is your leverage.
And how often does that happen?
That's what I hear more often.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, but you're right. If you can just put it in the middle or just make it part of the story, that's when it can become way more effective.
Yeah, and I think that happens for a lot of word tracks, right? We have scripts that are out there.
Yeah.
Right? It's your tone, inflection, and how you sell them is how they work. And a lot of times you can just take a script. Oh, I have your script. Okay. How does it flow? How does it sound? How do you sell it? Makes a difference.
Well,
how do you get some? Go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
Well, sure.
I was talking to someone earlier today, and what you just said resonated with me because a number of dealers all use the same email templates. And then there's a couple of CRM systems out there that will actually allow you to put phone templates in there or talk tracks. And a lot of the time those just get thrown into a CRM by some, the first dealer who signed up for that CRM ever, back in 1997 or whenever that thing was made. And that becomes the process plan, the email templates, and the phone scripts that go to every single dealer. And there's no training with that. It's the CRMs. They come in and, when they do setups, they might come in for a day or two and they're there to train on what happens when you click this button, but they're not there to train on how best to say something. And so if that's a softball, I don't know what, this could be. So there you go, Mike.
No, that's good. And it's a really good point. And some of the things that we had talked about prior was getting to the basics, right? Okay, I mean, when I say about that, when it comes down to phone, okay, your tone and inflection is a big part of it. It's one of the basics. So one of the things I always talk about is preparation, and I sometimes relate it to a phone interview. A lot of times when I'm talking to a class, I'll bring that up and I'll say, Talk about preparation for a phone interview. If you had a phone interview and it was scheduled for tomorrow, 2:30, what would you do to get prepared for that? Some of the things I'll ask about that, and I'll look for responses. And a lot of times you hear that, well, I do some research. Oh, good for you. What else would you do? I don't know. Some people don't do anything. They're just like, I don't know, I like to wing it. Well, okay. Some people are that way, but I probably wouldn't. But in today's world, you wouldn't. Okay. I have one chance here. I got to put some time in. So what you would do is you would probably do some research. You maybe have your resume in front of you, pen and paper to take some notes, maybe prepared some questions ahead of time. So when they say that, by the way, do you have any questions for me? Oh, actually, I was doing a little research. You mentioned you had a couple of stores. Oh, put a little research in. But you know what? You're going to put a little time into things. You're going to be upbeat. You'll be happy. You're going to sound right. Okay. I noticed that when someone's trying to get the job, man, they're on their game. They sound fantastic. They get the job. A year and a half later, the phone rings. They pick up the job, and boom, they just talk like they just talk. It's like, what happened? You're about to interview for someone's business, someone's relationship. You're going to start here, and a lot of times we just don't put a lot in. We're just like, how fast can I say the dealership name? And they get right into it. And it's like, okay, doesn't sound like the same person at all. So I think your voice and your inflection and how you say things and how you deliver it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that. I would absolutely agree with you 100%. And what about, I've always, for me, if I was going to go into an important phone call, I would actually stand up. I wouldn't sit down. Stand up, get the blood flowing, sort of get your body into it, get your arms into it, whatever it takes.
That's right. I do like that. A lot of people like to pace, like the thing, but you stand up.
That's what I would do, pace.
It's a big one, especially if you're sitting at the phone and you're trying to get the phone down low and you kind of get a little hesitant, you kind of sound a little growly, but you stand up, you project, you sound clear, and people are trying to connect with people out there. Now, with everything going on, even people that didn't really want to go virtual or away are reaching out in different ways. And the phone is getting hammered right now. People are calling, okay? And they're looking for that connection. They're looking to somebody to talk to them. And I think that, setting up right and having the right etiquette's a big part of it. I know that I like to talk about two things happen on every phone call, right? One's communication. Someone asks some questions. Someone's going to answer the questions. But below that, there's an assessment process that's happening, okay? You call a large company today, what do you got to do? You got to push 2 for this, 4 for that, 6 for this, and you got to wait, and then you got to wait. And then finally, you get somebody on the phone. You may have 10 minutes in on this call, and you can't understand.
How frustrated are they by then?
Yeah. I think that the large companies have made it so difficult. I don't know about you guys, but when I got a call, a big company, I don't want to call. I'm like depressed. I know this is going to be a 20-minute deal to get through this situation. I know I'm in. I call an airline about a change I got to make that I can't just use the regular systems or whatever. I'm going to have to do that. I'm like bummed out. Okay, it's like, I'm in. I got to go through. I'm going to have to talk to somebody, and that's what happens. Okay, so I just want you to know, after you get done with this long discussion and this 20-minute phone call, what are they going to ask you for next after that? You're going to have to take the survey, right?
You got to take the survey.
Right. They want to ask you to take a survey. Why are they asking you to take the survey? They're asking
you to see how bad you sucked.
Because you know what? The people you calling in are generally nice, and they're not going to tell the person they couldn't understand them or weren't comfortable with that person, but they may put it on a survey. Okay, and that's what's happening to all of us when we're on the phone. The customer's not going to tell you how you're doing, but they're assessing how you're doing. How's your tone? How's your inflection? How are you describing things? Are you talking down to them? That's the kind of thing that they're doing. You're not going to know. Yeah, you think you set up an appointment, but they're not coming. In today,
yeah, they set it up just to get off the phone.
That's right. Okay, yeah, I'll be there. And you're like, oh yeah, you're putting it down, and you know what? You didn't really get them. Okay, they're just looking to get to the next person, because competitive. Everyone out there has the same tools as the next person today. BDCs have the same CRMs. A lot of them have the same word tracks. Everything, the same websites are out there. They even may have the same products. They're selling the same cars. Mm-hmm. What makes you different?
the people.
So I kind of like, I get into that whole thing when I get into the training, is separating yourself to make sure you're sounding different.
Well, one thing will always be true, at least I think it'll always be true. I bet there's some technologists out there that would try and disagree with me, but people still want to buy from people. And reason for that is because people need to know they're getting the best deal possible. So another human being has to tell them, okay, you've ground me into the dirt, you win, okay, this is the best deal you're possibly going to get. But to your point, it's all about the inflection, the tone, and how that's delivered. And so going back on, people buy from people, what differentiates a dealership and differentiates the experience is obviously the people and how well they're delivering your message, so forth and so on. So I'm not
Alex,
saying anything
are you saying that
revolutionary,
are you saying that digital retailing doesn't exist, or are you bashing it? Like, what's going on here?
I think digital retailing is definitely in its infancy. It certainly misses that. It misses quite a few things. One in particular is it can't tell a customer, hey, this is the best deal you're going to get, so just pull the trigger and do it. But it also, probably my bigger hang up with digital retailing is that it takes a customer to the point of the payment or price presentation, and then it just stops. And in the dealership, when you slide the worksheet across the desk, you play the he who speaks first loses game, and the customer has a reaction to whatever you've presented them. Usually it's the price is too high or the trade's too low or whatever it is. And then the salesperson's job gets started at that point. All right, now I've got to respond to whatever this reaction is. Maybe the sales manager's job is really getting started too, because there's a second, third, or fourth pass that's going to happen. Digital retailing doesn't even let the dealership get started, and that's the biggest issue I have with it.
I can't disagree. Mike, just looking at, obviously you're privy to a lot of different stats out there. How have phone calls changed since the change of the landscape? Are you seeing an increase in phone calls? I'm sure you have. Are you seeing where people are asking different questions? And if so, what type of questions are they asking that would be related to COVID? Are people asking, hey, I'd like to come in, I'm sort of afraid to come in because...
Right, yeah.
Are you doing something with your, what measurements are you taking to make us all feel safe? Is there any, what type of temperature are you seeing around that?
I think what you mentioned is all of the above. I think you're getting an array of all that, and like we even talked about a little bit in different areas. But I think that what we're trying to do, and I think what the dealerships are trying to do, and what we want to make sure we help them do, is I think the dealerships are doing a nice job in advertising. And they're going out there and they're saying, look, we're changing our experience for the environment to help them feel more comfortable in the situation. So we're hearing you on the phones. We're hearing the requests on, is it okay to come in? Is it okay? And what is happening? And the dealerships are doing a nice job saying, hey, look, we're okay with the home deliveries. We're okay with electronic paperwork. We're here. We're masked. We're masked. We're sanitizing. We're doing demos off site. There's all these nice things that they're advertising in, and they're putting in great packages. And I think that where training helps out is to deliver the message, because you spend the money on advertising this great environment or brand or whatever you want to do, and you have in it there, but when it comes through, how is it getting conveyed back out to the customer when they actually speak to somebody in there? That has to be a really consistent flow. And I think that that's where we're trying to help there by changing the word tracks to bring in some of the verbiage that are more relatable today, that people know that, hey, look, this dealership that I'm working with has got me in mind. They're willing to make the change with me. So this is somewhere I can stay working with, or I'm going to continue to work with, or I'm going to buy from. So I think that that's important.
That's my favorite buzzword today. Consistent.
Yeah. Well,
It's
I
the
have it up
hardest
here
thing
to
to
say
do, right?
it is. Consistency is obviously it's one of the things that we're always striving on. It's our buzzword. I think that anybody at a management level wants consistency. I think that that's what they want. Everybody wants a nice process that moves smoothly. And I think that's what I like about like our program and people that even sign up for programs that make sure that everything is consistent, because then you know it doesn't matter who they speak to, not only just in sales that we're talking about, but throughout the dealership, the reception, the fixed op part sales, everything, because those calls are coming into all departments, and the message has to be the same. The consistent message across is we're all doing the same thing, so it doesn't matter which touch point you have, that we're delivering the right message.
Well, speaking of making sure that things are consistent across all the positions in the dealership, I got an admission to make. When I was at Checkered Flag, I was a client of Phone Ninjas, and this was like 10 years ago.
Okay.
And so I enjoyed the training and the programs and the results that happened. We were trained by Jerry, which was we got the the star treatment back then.
Yeah.
And we definitely had some killer results from it. But in the last 10 years, obviously it's a long time to make some improvements. And what is Phone Ninjas doing now to train all these different positions? Because when we did it, it was really just the salespeople back then.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the receptionist. That's a big one.
Yeah, the reception one is a big one. I just recently talked to a dealership this week, and you get the reception, and I know that they get hit with a lot of calls. And and I always try to invite the receptionist in when I'm in the store, on the greeting portion, to make sure that they're doing all the little things. And it's a big part of it. I think that their tone, their attitude, I think mentioning their name is a really big thing. I know they got how may I direct your call, but they're going really quick to it. Please hold. Okay. They don't even realize that, how much, I don't know, how much of a voice or how much of a representation of the company that they really have, I think sometimes, because of the sheer volume of calls that they're dealing with. But Phone Ninjas, to kind of answer your question, is really evolved in the time that I've been there. And what I mean by that is very comprehensive in the departments and in the training. Not only does the training just involve on-site training where we're actually there, but we do have virtual training videos. We have the ongoing coaching. We have the reporting, service, parts, with the same coaching. They have their training areas. So some of the coaching that you saw now is evolved. We have elaborate coaching reporting with videos now. We have reporting back to management with updates in video updates of what's going on with their departments. And I think that, just like hopefully you guys would agree, that if you're going to make any change or incorporate a new process, communication is key to having it work. So everyone has to be on the same page if you're going to create that culture that you're looking for. Because I don't care what kind of tool you're going to buy. If it's going to be a phone training tool, a CRM tool, whatever, they all are cool and they all work. But changing the behavior so everybody uses the tool, now that's usually the hard part, and that's where the training comes in. And I think that Phone Ninjas did a nice job of doing that part of it, so everybody's clear on how to use the tool, and if not, we're there to help. I don't know if that helped you.
I think it did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually getting a bunch of messages now from Vitaly.
Yeah, we're getting quite a. Yeah,
hey, who can I call at Checkered Flag? Love it. So, How about BDC training?
Okay.
There's,
I do.
Go
Yeah,
ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, BDC training. We do BDC training. I have the BDC members quite a bit. I'll sit in there and I go through it, and it's always a lot of fun. With the BDC, a lot of times there's a bunch of younger people, but I've been in other stores and it's been more tenured people in the BDCs. But the BDCs are, I think, are key when they, just like with anything that are consistent and they're confident. That's what I've noticed, is building the confidence level to know that they can take on a situation and have something they can confidently say back to the customer, and having the word tracks and have practiced them with their coach seems to do that. I think that every BDC person or every manager out there really wants their staff to really take ownership. I think that's what you're looking for, right? I mean, you want people to take ownership to their situations. So how that happens is they got to be able to stand on their own. And I think by investing and having the training there, okay, they can do that better. So one of the things when we're training the BDCs and I sit with the BDCs, and after a meeting or after a training session, it's one of the things that I hear quite a bit is like, you know what? I feel more confident now. I feel pretty good about going into today and going to the phones now. Because, it's when they hear it back versus when they just read it in a word track, it's hard for them to relate how they're going to make it sound or whatever. And when you go through a training session, okay, and they hear it, there are a lot of times they're like, oh, now I see how it can work for me. I know I can pull this here and I can get this little nugget to work where I didn't before. And those are the things that I think become the win. And once they gain the confidence, they can take more ownership. That takes more away from the manager. Manager can work more on other things. I think they're more successful.
Well, here's a good question. In one, I want to share a personal experience with. So one of the things that Jerry used to employ when he'd train a new team at Checkered Flag was he would put the challenge to the ones who were skeptical, especially the old dogs. Doug, God, what's Doug's last name? Well, there was a old Honda salesperson. I love the guy to death. But he was really like, I don't need training. And Jerry said, well, give me your hardest customer and I'll make an appointment out of him right here in front of everyone. And he hopped on the phone and sure enough, he did it. So there's a question from Joe Pastel. We'll put it up on the screen. It says, do you find it easier to train a new hire in a dealership with zero experience or a seasoned professional that has handled customers and calls in a dealership setting prior to the training?
I think that was Joe Webb.
Oh, what did I say?
Joe Pastel.
Oh,
you got Pastel in the mind.
Apparently.
Shout out to Joe Pastel.
Yep. Sorry, Joe.
Hey,
Well,
Joe.
there you go.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for chiming in. I appreciate the question. That is a really good question. I think that an open mind coming in when they're brand new, they have the bright eyes. Where they come in and they're just looking for the knowledge and the experience because they're looking to see everything to do. And I think that a lot of times people look for them. I used to work in another industry in the IT world, and they wouldn't want to hire anybody from another group or anything because they called them like retreads. They don't want anybody with other baggage. We want to bring them in. We want them thinking and talking the way he did. This is one of the things they used to say. But I get both, but I really enjoy teaching or talking to both, because when I've done interviews, one of the things that they've asked me is, what do you get most out of the job? What really gets it for you? What things do you like about the job when you leave it? And one of the things that I really like is when I do have a tenured guy that's been out there 25 plus years. He's been selling cars a long time. He sold a lot of cars. He's had a lot of success. He's got all those awards all over the office and all that stuff. And he walks up and he shakes my hand and he goes, you know what? I picked up some things today, and I'm telling you, it was really refreshing. I really enjoyed your talk. Those things for me, they hit hard, because here's a guy that's heard it all. And I think that they do get a little bit into a routine and how they say things and and they just hear it maybe just a little bit differently, a little bit more refreshed, a little bit more today, but still has the same kind of basis that they have heard, where they feel like they can make the change and make that and adapt to it. I think that they get both. So I enjoy teaching both. I do. But I really can't pick between the two. That's a tough one.
When you can teach an old dog a new trick, that's pretty rewarding.
It is. It is. It's tough. It's tough to do because one of the first things I usually bring about is a lot of times I'll bring up a slide that's going to say a lot of times people think this is a waste of time. I got to go to training. They made me go to training, so I got to just sit here. I'm not going to sell anything today. And I address that right off the thing. I say, hey, sometimes just keeping an open mind, blah blah blah. I have this whole thing. And I think they sit back and they're like, yeah, I guess he's talking to me. And, and then, they get a little bit into it, and then they realize that they help others with their knowledge. Because a lot of times what I talk about, my favorite part about working in the dealership were the people that worked in the dealership. They were friends. I mean, we sold cars all day. We drank all night. That's what we did. It's like one of those things. I talk about it. And I think that if we ran into situations that we struggled with, we shared it. Man, what would you say to this guy? I don't know what to say. And I think sometimes into the classes that I'm in, you see some of the tenure guys that normally don't say much will say something and will help somebody else in the class. And that's always nice too.
Yeah, when somebody else teaches a class for you.
Yeah, I say that sometimes when they've gone through the class, like maybe with Jerry or something like that. And I say, "Does anybody ever take this?" And they say, "Oh yeah, I've been through it." I'm like, "Oh, you're going to help me out?" And they're like, "No, no."
That's why you're back there again, Mike.
Yeah.
So within all the departments at a car dealership, you as a consumer, which department are you more afraid to call? Which department in the car dealership do you feel as if is probably the absolute worst?
When you were doing like a mystery type situation? Or whatever.
It can be just a typical consumer calling in for something to do with a vehicle. Which department has the absolute worst phone skills? And once you figure out that department, what's it going to take to get that department better? Is it important that they're better? Is it important that they do have phone training? Or maybe the RI doesn't even make sense for that particular department to not have any phone training? And I don't know your answer. I'm just hoping you answer it correctly.
Yeah. Well, I hate to, I don't want to, get in the wrong department. I mean, it's far in all the departments, but the worst,
I'll give you a hint.
Give me a hint. Huh? Which one?
The parts department.
I didn't want to pick on the part.
You never hear anything positive.
Jeff, they just brought you a bunch of deliveries. Cut them some slack.
I tell you, when I sit with the parts guys and I sit with the service writers, they kind of gang up on each other a little bit. Okay, they rely on each other quite a bit too, when they work, but they gang up on each other a lot. And that's like the first thing when we're going over the greeting. It's one of the things, the first thing that happens is you don't really get a good greeting out of parts, very rarely.
You don't get a greeting.
Huh?
Parts.
Hold. Parts, please hold. Parts, hold, please. Can you hold, please? It's very quick. It's sort of the thing, it's one of those things that happen. So if you're going to pick on the departments that way, as far as quality, yeah, you're probably you run into it there. Now, tenure parts departments. Guy's been there a long time. For some people that work in parts, they love that position. And I go quite a bit of places, and they love that job. Mm-hmm. They do. They love that job. I don't know what it is about the structure or the comfort level there.
Because they can hide out.
Well, unless you're on the front counter,
but that's a super busy dealership, or an Automax or something like that, parts department. But typical car dealership parts department, man, they're hiding out, man. They really don't have to deal with the average, with the consumer. They're usually dealing with the tech.
It sounds like somebody on this call works at a Mercedes store in Maryland.
It works in the department.
Well, I've worked at many other dealerships as well, and typically their interactions are with the are not the retail side of the business.
Ooh, Chris has got a good one here. Says, you ever tried calling the accounting?
Yeah, that's probably, well, you just don't get through to them. You just get a voicemail.
Yeah, I've tried. Yeah, you get a lot of voicemail. Yeah,
and no return call.
Yeah, it is.
But you guys do train. You train in the parts department. You train service as well. With everything that's been going on, did you guys change up anything on the service department?
It's going to be it's more gloves, sanitized type related. We're going that route, but I think that I'm glad you brought up that side, because I think when you look at the stats of calls, do you guys want to take a guess on how many calls come into a dealership for fixed op versus a sales call?
80-20.
Even just a little bit better than that. So majority of all the calls are coming in on the fixed side. So a lot of times when people are trying to get a temperature or their perception of their dealership in their community, okay, their community is really getting a good feel or the temperature of that dealership and how they handle people through the fixed stops. So if you think about how much more touch point that they have, I try to stress that when I'm talking with them, because one of the first things I ask them is, anyone here in sales? And what do they usually say? No, we're in service.
No.
Let me ask again.
They're in sales all day long.
They're talking to more people outside the dealership than anyone else in the dealership. They're selling a lot more on the phone than even the sales department or the BDC in front. They're talking to a lot more people. Their transactions, there's so much more. So their inflection, their etiquette, okay, and how they're handling things is really important, because you know what it's like if you're going to buy a Mercedes-Benz and you spend $75,000 on a vehicle, or $80,000 or something like that, or you're paying $1,000 a month or whatever it is, and you have a bad experience in service, you are not going back to that dealership. You know it. I know I'm not. So it's so important, and sometimes that's what I really do. And the first thing I always talk about is the value of them and how important they are and how valued they are, because they are put in such a situation where they're running very, very thin. Okay, because the cars are getting there, we're bringing in more cars, we're selling more cars, they're coming into the service part, they're expanding, they're doing a lot more work, and we're trying to hold on to staff, and it's getting very thin for them. So I do stress all that when I'm going through that, to let them know that it's important, they're important to us, and it's important to the dealership.
Well, and with that being said, a lot of dealerships, when they decide to sign up with some type of training, they're so focused on the sales side, and that's with everything in the car business. They're so focused on the sales side, they don't even think about the service side. But from what I'm hearing you saying, and I would totally agree, that it's probably more important to make sure that your service department is more, is trained better, more trained than your sales department. Or if you had a particular amount budget, like, this is where I'm going to focus first.
Why be logical?
In the service department. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely, it's definitely a huge part of, I mean, obviously one of those things where you're trying to, like I say, talk to the community. There's a lot of manufacturers out there that are very big, and we're not just a car company. We're trying to do a lot more. We're giving back, and they're trying to give out this great message all the time. And really, when they talk to the actual company, most of the time it's in fixed ops, and it really has to have the same message back as they're seeing in the branding and all in the advertising.
Yeah.
Well, we've got two questions that have come in. One might be maybe a little out of scope for what you guys do, but let's try it anyway. This is from Rick Buffkin.
Okay.
Not sure if this has been asked yet or not, but Mike, have you seen a drop in contact made stats? I'm assuming inside the CRM since the Apple/Google unknown number blocking went into effect. So,
Cool.
if you're unfamiliar, I think Apple started this, and this was a few months ago, where if you have an unknown caller ID coming in on your iPhone, they'll just send it straight to voicemail.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, that's a good question, and I'm just going to bow. I apologize. I don't have the answer to that one. That's a good one, but I have seen that happen to my phone, but I haven't heard from the dealerships. It was something I can check internally though, and I can get back. So you can share my information. I can find that out for you. Great. I will get that back to you. So I'll make a note on that one.
And the second question, which your coworkers are answering in the comments, but this is also from Joe Webb, not Joe Pastel. Mike, what is better, a well-trained outsourced BDC or a barely trained BDC in store at the dealership?
Woo! I have to make a pick on that.
Yeah.
Let's ask this a different way. What do you think your coworkers said the answer was?
Trained BDC, probably. I think the best team's going to win, right? And it doesn't matter if they're internal or external. The best team is going to win. The numbers are the numbers. I think that there is. People that own the dealership would hope that their people could do that. But I know that there is a growing world out there that could use that skill set. And I've heard some really good performances going out there in the third party side. So I think that if you had I've been into BDCs that I don't think they should have BDCs in certain areas. I would recommend to the store, look, I don't think you should have it. I think that you should have your salespeople become your BDCs because they have the knowledge, they have the personality. And I think some stores would be missing it. And it's really been based on training, and they haven't put a lot of emphasis on it. You guys have worked in stores. You guys know sometimes the BDC is almost an afterthought. They're put in a small area, they're condensed, they're put in the thing, and it's not, it doesn't, I guess
it doesn't flow with the showroom floor. It's not really a part. It's a separate department and not a part of the sales department.
Right. And I think it all has to mesh together. It all has to flow. You come into work and it's this beautiful, gorgeous place, and then I'm going to go to work back here. It's like this little thing, and it's like, okay. And sometimes people just don't like that environment, and they get a little bit of an attitude. They're in tight areas, people on top of each other. So I go to other places. It's just the exact opposite. They're a big part of the team. They're addressed that way. They're respected that way. The salespeople respect them that way. They try to help them. They help each other, and it goes really well. So I think that the dealerships that incorporate the team properly, it's a win. In other areas, third party would work out well.
Almost.
I don't know if I answered that politically or not. It's kind of a tough one.
Well, I'll throw my hat in the ring on that one.
Go ahead.
As someone who battled with this for years, I ran a BDC. Ran I think 2 of them during my career at Checkered Flag, just because a recession came in and crushed it at one point. But the whole reason we started it up was because phone skills on the floor and salespeople not wanting to deal with anything that isn't physically present. So we fired up a BDC, a central one, and we had 9 people in there, and we were paying anywhere from $3,000 to call it $6,000 a month per head. Do the math on that; it gets expensive. Plus a manager, versus what some outsourced BDCs will you can do there, and then you don't have the HR headaches. You don't have the recruiting issues. You can, it's dealers are really good at holding vendors accountable. So it's easier to hold the outsourced BDC accountable than your own BDC in a lot of ways too. So I wasn't a fan of outsourced BDCs when I was at Checkered Flag, but I had a biased perception of them then. I might have a biased perception of them now, but if I could go back and do it again, I'd do a hybrid. I'd use an outsourced BDC, and I'd keep my really good people, and I'd have my really good people handling the more high-touch customers, making the Porsche sales. Speaking of that, I like the picture behind you. We'll have to come back to that before we end, but
okay.
Here, let me show that one real quick.
Yeah, I can't see
911.
Oh, that's my old car. Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, we'll come back to it. But
Yeah, so I would like to do a hybrid. So put out the first time calls and those kind of things. The one that you waste so much time on, just trying to follow up with the internet leads and that kind of thing. And then, the engaged customers I'd leave for my people.
There you go.
But that's me.
Okay. I want to train them all. So I'm loving everybody. I like third party. I like them in the dealership. I want to be there. But that's good.
Well, Mike, give us a little bit of story on the Porsche.
911, 1986, 911 Turbo. I bought it from the guitar player in Quiet Riot. Come on,
really?
Feel Noise, 1980, whatever. You guys remember that?
Yeah, of course.
Come on. I flew out to California. This guy was selling it online, and I flew out there and drove it around. I love the car. I wanted it between an 86 and 89. I wanted the tail. I wanted the big wide body.
Whale tail.
Yeah. So I go out there, went to Hollywood. He was there. He was working in Universal Studios, in one of the pictures or something like that. He brings the car out, took it for a test drive. I brought it back across the country. Owned it for 15 years. Loved it. Just loved the car. I tracked it. I did everything. It was beautiful. Sold to a friend. I was sitting. I was traveling a ton. It was just...
You weren't driving it. Yeah.
And
those cars can't sit around.
It just can't sit, and it's just and it was just sitting there, and and a buddy of mine really wanted it. He had asked me prior, and I didn't sell it to him, and I said, fine, I'm not using it, and there's some things I got to do. I got college coming up, and I could use it. Well, of course, I sell the car. What's it do? That air-cooled car just rocketed over $50,000 more than now it's worth close to $100,000, and he's got it laughing at me. So that's my story of my car, but I do love it.
Well, at least he's still a friend.
Yeah, he is. We still talk, and I don't know if you guys can see it on here, but it's a beautiful car. That's my nephew.
Oh, it's beautiful.
In the picture. The car.
Yep, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
well, Mike, we really appreciate you joining us, man. I think anyone that's watching today is going to walk away with some good information, some good ideas to go back and take to the phone.
Good. I hope that we got the message across. Being consistent, being confident on the phone, and in knowing that there are training companies out there. And one thing I would just suggest before we can sign off here in a second is, if you're going to be looking for a source to help you in the training, okay, one of the things I always recommend is make sure hire a contractor, and not a consultant. I don't know about you guys, but a consultant, a lot of times there's a lot of companies that are out there that are alerting, telling you what the situation is, and not fixing the issue of making things better. And I think that that's one of the things that we like to do. And flexibility. One of the things we're adding now is things like this, more virtual trainings. I'm an on-site trainer. I go there. I know we have to change it. We've been working on that. So I am virtually going in and flexing, saving the cost on travel and so on, but it's giving it more of a personal touch. It helps with scheduling, makes it a lot easier. I think that those kinds of things are going to be helpful. But those are just a couple of tips I would also put on there. But I appreciate all the time.
Absolutely. And one quick question: have you guys thought about some type of video training for dealerships for one-to-one video? Because I do feel as if we're going to see a climb in that.
Yeah, well, we do that now. Okay, we're doing more interaction videos now. The virtual.
Well, I'm talking about dealership to customer, training the dealerships how to handle the video with the consumer.
I like it. I like it. I think that's huge. I think that you're going to be seeing cameras on all that. I think that's you're going to see a lot more of that. I think that's excellent. We can definitely address that. I think that would be excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you've got the phone skills. All you need to do is look good for the video.
There you go. Put a jacket.
Here's how you apply your
some
lipstick.
fancy microphones, and you guys are. No, it's good.
Mike, we really appreciate your time today, man.
No, it's great talking to you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
you got it, man. And happy Father's Day.
You too. You too, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Father's Day, everybody, and we'll see y'all next week.
All right.
Yep.